So I have water pooling in the runners of my BMW i3 because of a poorly installed windshield. And I think I'm going to need to drill holes in my car. I took it to the dealership and they said they wouldn't touch it.
What? Why would they not touch it? Because somebody did some work on it afterwards?
Well, I'm sorry. They gave me a quote of $7,000 to replace the windshield and to get the water out of there.
Okay.
So I'm driving around with water in this, I'm waiting for it to freeze and break my car. It's a source of anxiety for me.
Buy lots of towels.
We have a guest today. Rick Beyer is joining us from Chicago.
Yes.
Yes. Rick Beyer is, among other things, the producer and the host of History Happy Hour, found at historyhappyhour.net, which is a podcast about history. And his co-host is Christopher Anderson. And he's just
we actually changed it to historyhappyhour.com, although you can get there through historyhappyhour.net. But
you're right. It does. It's at historyhappyhour.com. I did that too, so I forgot.
and just stop driving a BMW and go buy a Subaru, and you should be fine.
Oh man, I had a Subaru. I haven't. It's an electric car, so it's also like a little dinky electric. It's a toy car. It's not a real car. It is. Lionel's seen it. It's a toy car. It's.
I love it.
Yeah, I love it too. I don't love the water thing, but the water feature. It has a water feature.
I love Lionel's microphone. I'm staring transfixed at Lionel's mic.
It's like a birdcage microphone.
I don't know. It's very high tech.
Yeah, it's not. And Jim's got the exact same one there. If you look right behind his pop filter there. In fact, Jim told me to buy this one.
We have matching microphones.
And then he's hiding his own.
It's like $50, right? It wasn't a lot.
No, I don't know. They're 100 maybe.
Yeah, but
it's not like you're not buying like a condenser, tube mic or anything.
I don't think you can see mine because I'm wearing a black shirt.
I can't see it. No. But you always sound good on the podcast.
It's a Shure M7.
Yes, yeah. I've heard good things.
Yeah.
We decided not to go with the Blue Yeti. I think that it's inconsistent at best.
Yeah. So I go back to your introduction of what an amazing.
Oh yeah. No, I'm sorry.
Sorry to interrupt you.
No, not at all. Rick Beyer is a best-selling author and award-winning documentary producer and a longtime history enthusiast with a take on history that is both humorous and illuminating. He has appeared on CBS News, MSNBC, CNN, the Discovery Channel, NPR, and Fox News.
And now here.
And we can talk about the Ghost Army, which has been a long-running project of yours that I just find amazing. Welcome, Rick.
I am very happy to be here and to join your fine audience and chat about whatever you wish. The floor is open to anything. We can go anywhere.
As you say on the History Happy Hour, the bar is open.
The bar is open.
Are you enjoying a dry January?
I am. We are talking today on January 14th, so I'm 14 days in. And it's gone very well so far. I haven't gotten the DTs or suffered any major psychological breakdowns.
Lost weekend kind of thing, yeah.
I'm waking up to discover I'm married and I have 2 children. I had no idea. No, it's gone really well. I'm going to continue. I'm actually going to break it, I think, a week early because of some travel that we're doing to New Orleans. And I feel like I'm going to break it then. But it's gone very well.
Yeah, New Orleans is the wrong place
for a dry
to exercise discretion in general.
In any way.
I was listening to one of your episodes, Rick. What was it? It was the one about Belle Starr. And the guy was going on about how, she was cattle rustling and she was shooting, she was cussing and spitting and, and walking around. And you said, yes, she was engaging in dangerous activities. It was the most hilarious. One of the most beautiful understatements I'd ever heard in my entire life.
It's funny when you're live. People will say, "Oh, you said this or you said that," and I mean, we've done now 285 episodes.
Wow!
And if you ask me to list the guests that we've had, I could probably come up with 4 of them.
Yeah, same here. I have no recollection. I have very little recollection.
And yeah, and people might remember things that I say. I have no memory of them at all.
Oh, it was very,
Thank you.
it was
I
very
appreciate
funny.
that.
The other thing I want to talk about, since you said the floor is open, there's something on your bio, on your website that caused me a bit of concern.
Okay.
It said that one of your achievements was that you were consoled by Mary Tyler Moore, and I find the word consoled a little. That's a sort of a broadly defined word. Can we elaborate on what
Yeah, I
you
can
mean?
tell you the story. Excuse me. Pardon me. I'm coughing. I have a little piece of pepper that got stuck in my throat. I was on my college radio station, WDCR, and Mary Tyler Moore and her husband, Grant Tinker, were making a visit to Dartmouth for whatever reason. And they consented to do an interview. So I did an hour-long interview with
Wow.
Mary Tyler Moore and Grant Tinker in Studio MC of our radio station. And I've got all my questions. I'm very prepped. I'm very enthusiastic about this. And in the course of doing this interview, as I was reading a question, I was about to read a question, I crossed my legs. And in crossing my legs, I kicked over a steel wastebasket, which made a very loud sound, like the crash of thunder in the studio. And I said, because I'm a master of situations like this, I said, I kicked over the wastebasket. And Mary Tyler Moore leans forward and pats me on the knee and says, "But you did it so beautifully, Rich."
Oh, that's why she's a pro.
That's why she's a pro.
Yeah.
She was. She was truly amazing in so many ways. Yeah. So that was my moment with Mary Tyler Moore. I don't have a tape of that interview either, so I have no idea what we talked about.
That so I mean, was your original plan to go into radio? Or was it just something to do in college?
Original plan was to go to Dartmouth, go to law school, become an attorney, and run for U.S. Senate. That was the plan I'd laid out. Okay. I started working at the college radio station. Actually, I was going to work for the Dartmouth College newspaper, but I'd had a camp counselor the summer before, Tom Falcon, who said, "Oh, don't work for the newspaper. That's terrible. Work for the radio station." And in the way of so many naive 18-year-olds for millions of years, I just assumed he was older and he knew what he was talking about.
Right. Yeah.
So I went to work for the radio. Well, maybe not. I went to work for the radio station and then immediately got so involved in that my grades were so borderline that I was never going to get into, Harvard or Yale or Stanford, which as far as I knew were the only law schools there were. And I really liked journalism, so I decided to become Edward R. Murrow. That became my new plan, is I was going to be the bold radio journalist of the second half of the 20th century.
Mm-hmm.
That
Congratulations.
didn't exactly work out either, but it led in good directions.
Oh, that's interesting. I guess I've never asked you that question. And how did you get into making the documentary film about the Ghost Army?
So did you want me to describe my entire life?
No, I guess no. These are key
begin?
points for me. I mean, I know there is some advertising in the background, but I think also, I remember it was a fundraiser actually for the film, and I went because Liz Linder told me that I should show up.
Oh,
and
you
she
went
was
to the
often,
Liz Linder fundraiser. Okay.
Yep.
Yeah.
And she was always having like interesting parties and knew a lot of interesting people. And we had met previously, but that was the first I had heard about this. And actually, it was the first a lot of people had heard about this, was because this was around 2002 or something like that.
Probably 2005, I'm going to guess. So I, coming out of college, I worked in radio, worked in television news, worked in advertising, got connected with the History Channel, began making documentaries for the History Channel. One fine January morning in 2005, I got an email from a former business partner of mine, Mark Tomizawa, and he said, "Oh, I'm serving on a board with this woman, Martha Gavin, and her uncle, John Jarvie, is a veteran of this incredible World War II unit that used inflatable tanks on the battlefield, and she thinks somebody should make a documentary about it. Would you meet with her?
Wow.
And usually, I say no to things like that. I mean, usually if somebody says, I've got a great idea for a documentary, I would say, great, you should make that documentary
Right.
because you're passionate about it, right? Like if somebody
Right.
comes to you and says, I've got a great idea for a song,
Yeah.
you say, yeah, I got
Yeah.
my own ideas for songs.
That's called a gotta do. Yeah.
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 Okay. Yeah. You got to do that.
Right. Exactly.
So,
Here's something you got to do.
yeah. But I took this meeting and she walked in. We'd met at a Starbucks. She walked in. She had these red 3-ring binders that were her uncle's wartime scrapbooks. So they had photos, they had artworks because he was an artist, and there are many
Right.
artists who served in this unit. And I very quickly got involved. And sort of the last part of this story is that I believed that I would be able to pitch this to the History Channel, and they would want to do it because I was doing work for the History Channel. Here's a great idea. I've got access to soldiers. Fantastic story. They were not interested.
Weird.
They were not interested. Well, they were sort of changing their platform, kind of moving away from Hitler and history and all that stuff. Anyway, so and then I had to decide whether to do it on my own, and I decided I would try to go forth and raise the money and do it. And so that was 20 years ago, and that of course led to the documentary. It led to the Ghost Army book. It led to our efforts to convince Congress to award the unit a Congressional Gold Medal. So it all came out of Martha Gavin and Mark Tomizawa.
That's wild. And I mean, what a journey. The thing is, when I heard about it, it just sounded, it was a
Fake.
It was a missing piece of history. It sounded completely fake. There were inflatable tanks on the field in France. There were these speakers making fake sounds. There were guys dressing up and going into cafes and talking loose.
There were guys pretending to be generals.
Right.
Somebody who was a captain would be wearing general stars, going around in a jeep with guys who were guards. There was one soldier I saw an interview the other day, and he's saying, "Oh, and I had to salute, this guy, and I didn't even." I ranked him like I was a sergeant and he was a corporal, but he's got the general stars on, and I've got to salute him, and he's like lording over me, and he was like, I said, I will get you later, but yeah, they did all this stuff, and especially early on when it felt like nobody had heard of it at all, and I was just trying to educate people. I would start to talk to people and say, well, wait a minute, this is a fiction movie that you're trying to get done?
Right. It sounds like Inglourious Bastards.
Exactly.
Or something like that. Yeah.
Yeah. And I said, no, this really happened. Mm-hmm. And you would get this kind of redialing in, like they were kind of paying attention before, but now they're really paying attention. But even after 20 years and a documentary that has been seen around the world and interviews on all those networks we talked about at the top, probably a day doesn't go by that I don't run into somebody and somehow that we start talking about this and they haven't heard of it. So, I'm plowing to see. I'm still trying to educate people.
I heard about it. I don't know if it was your documentary. I don't know if there's other documentaries about it now, but I certainly saw a documentary about this where they talked about, the guy. What I love was because I'm an audio guy, and the guy's driving the trucks back and forth at night, and the sounds of construction, and the Germans are right across the river. And I thought, wow, seriously, this is outrageous. But there's also, there's Operation Mincemeat. So there are other like deception operations going on at the same time. Maybe you can help me because there's this. Have you ever heard of Connie Willis? She's a science fiction writer. She wrote a Doomsday book. These are like Nebula award-winning books. She wrote to say nothing of the dog, but she also wrote a 2-volume, exquisitely tedious, unbelievably long 2-volume set about the Blitz in England. First volume is Blackout, and the second volume is All Clear. And part of what she talks about is something where they take they're going to trade back it's in England, and the British have agreed to trade back certain high-level prisoners of war to the Germans in exchange for something, for a prisoner exchange of some sort of something like that. And these guys the British soldiers take this prisoner on the way to being, they for some reason they take him, and what they do is they drive him around, and they change all the street signs. So it looks like they're driving around in Coventry or some other town, and there's all this fake stuff set looking like it's the disembarkation point for D-Day. And I just
I
wondered if that was was she basing that on something
I
true?
believe that happened, or something very close to that happened. That there was,
Amazing.
as part of the Operation Fortitude deceptions. Now that's separate from the Ghost Army that
Yeah.
I've made my film about. But the Allies, and really it's the British, conduct this amazing deception called Operation Fortitude, to fool the Germans about where the D-Day landings would take place. And the central part of that deception is that they've turned all the German agents in Britain. They are now all working for Great Britain because Britain has uncovered them all. So they're feeding back false information to their masters. But there's a lot of other parts to it too, and I do believe that one of them they this German prisoner for health reasons. It was a general, something like that. He was being returned. That they kind of drove him through and
Yeah.
gave him just a little peek so that he thought he had some information to impart when
Yeah.
he got back to
Looks
Germany.
amazing.
Deception is fascinating, and it's all about psychology. And one of the things that I just found really interesting about deception. I was talking to a magician about this, and it's like you don't want to reveal too much. Like if you're trying to convince people to believe that we're going to be attacking from a certain place, you don't want to just put it out in the radio and say the Americans are attacking from Trevier or wherever it is, because it's too obvious. So you want to drop little clues here and there, little partial clues. Maybe the audio gives you one piece, maybe inflatable tanks gives you one piece, maybe fake radio transmission, and then you're depending on the enemy intelligence officer to put it all together and believe that he has sussed out what you're trying to
Right.
do. So if you
Yeah.
can convince him that he's thought this up and penetrated your
Right. It can't be too
thinking,
easy.
he's more likely to believe it. And that just is very fascinating.
Hey,
So Sarah Elkins is in the chat. So we actually have one live commenter mentioned that she read
Hi,
Connie
Sarah.
Willis. Hi, Sarah. It's mentioned that she read Connie Willis's Blackout, and I was so mad at the abrupt ending. But also commented, surely the invasion will come from Calais. Normandy is just a feint.
It turned out there were some historians who were. Was there a time travel
Yeah.
element to that?
It's Connie Willis has
I've
written
read
many
those.
books.
I read those, and they were very sort of tedious and yet interesting at the
Yeah.
same time.
She's got Alan Turing in it, and
Right, all the details of all
and
those
it leads
people.
up to one of the most exquisite scenes in the book. I don't want to go into it, but there are some sweet moments in those books that are absolutely fabulous. But yeah, boy, you got to really, 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 really like the Blitz to read those books. I'm telling you, they go on forever.
Well, yeah, so doing History Happy Hour, I basically am reading a book a week for History Happy Hour. And, there are ones that you can whip through and you get done by Wednesday and, for a Sunday interview. And there are ones that I'm sitting there on Sunday early afternoon, still trying to see if I can get a few more pages in before I have to beg off and start writing my questions. So there's always a great variety of how long a book takes to read.
Okay, so I noticed that History Happy Hour is sort of book centered. Most of the episodes are structured around a book. So one easy question is, how do you pick the books? How do the books come to you? And what books do you pick? And how much is your desire? And how much is it, how you determine the topicality? That's one question. I have another question, which is perhaps a much more interesting question, which is, have you had a book recently that just, you're like, whoa, I never imagined that. Like I've never heard that before, or that really opens up an avenue in history that I'd never really thought, I'd never expected was so rich.
Well, the first question is, I should go back and say when we started, was Chris and I are both guides for Stephen Ambrose Historical Tours, and we lead history tours in Europe. He does it full time, I do it part time. And we started during COVID, and we just intended the show to be kind of a fill-in for a few weeks, and we would just chat, sort of like you might in a bar at the end of a day on the road, and people would ask questions. And then we decided to invite an author, and we said, well, who's the author who we most would want to have? And it was a guy named Joe Balkowski, who's written a bunch of books about World War II, including the book Omaha Beach and the book Utah Beach. And he immediately said yes and came on. We were like, oh, people will say yes if we ask them. And then we asked this very famous British author, Andrew Roberts, who had just written a biography of Churchill, and he came on the 80th anniversary of the day Churchill became prime minister. And so then we said, okay, we can start asking authors. So in the early days, we would just kind of, look at the New York Times or, look at whatever and see what books were out there and call people up. And then after a while, and I mean, keep in mind, it's been more than 6 years. After a while, the publisher started sending us books. Right. So again, a rare is the day that I don't get a book in. And we look at them, we discuss them. We have a producer, Cheryl Dalposel, who does all the arrangements. And my co-host Chris and co-producer Chris really is he's the guy who, if we're tied, it's his vote. He's the guy who gets to select the book. So, and he used to be an editor and knows a lot of people in publishing, and he's just very connected into that world. So that's a help. We try to have books that are new, that are relatively new. We definitely, virtually all of our authors, the book has come out in the last 6 months, and many times we'll have an author on a couple of days before their book is being published. So we try to be as topical as we can. You asked me about a show that blew me away. That would require me to remember the shows that we've done.
Not a show, but a book. I mean,
right. Well, we just did. We just did a show that was incredible, and we on Sunday. And we interviewed an author named Henry Sledge. Henry Sledge's father was Eugene Sledge.
Yeah, I watched that episode. I actually watched it today.
To it as well.
Yeah, he wrote this most incredible soldier's memoir of World War II called "The Old Guard at the Old Breed at Halelu and Okinawa." And his son is, he had so much material that his son has written a book that basically has a ton of his father's material that didn't make it into the original book. And it was really interesting. And he was very, I thought, candid and emotional and a terrific interview. And I was just, hanging on to everything that he said.
He was good. Yeah, he was good. You could sort of sense, because one of the things it was fascinating. It's that wild World War II generation. It's just these guys who were privileged people. He was a PhD, the elder Sledge.
Became a biology professor in Alabama.
Right. And Jim, Paul Desjardins, who became a philosophy professor, and the my dad fought in there, and the headmaster of my school, Charles E. Merrill III. I mean, he was the son of Charles E. Merrill of Merrill Lynch, and he decided to go fight. I mean, I think he joined the Canadians or something. I'm not sure, but he was one of those people. He didn't have to go fight for anybody.
Jim knows that we have on the Ghost Army website, we have a bio section where we're doing biographies of soldiers. And it's not what they did in the war. It's generally what the rest of their life was about. And we started doing this a few weeks into COVID. It's done by Catherine Hurst, who heads up our bio section. And we have 550 bios in there right now. And it's incredible what some of these guys did. And artists who had these great careers, people who became scientists, people who, it's just, and it's not just the people who were famous, who became famous. It's a whole level of people who went to, had fascinating, complex, intricate careers who weren't famous or weren't that famous that really kind of make it interesting.
I want to point out there are two websites. There's theghostarmy.org, which is the archives, which is one of the greatest sites I've ever had the privilege to build because of the depth of information, and also finding the best ways to set up the structure for that kind of depth of information so that people can consume it in an easy way. Well, I mean, when you're reading about Operation Breast, there's no easy way. It's pages and pages of pictures and text, but the bios are amazing, and you can just kind of scroll through and
Yeah.
see how many guys uh, were involved in these deceptions.
And it's
It
so fascinating that
recommend
you
it.
can find information about them. You know, that if you go back, you start with a name and a serial number, and you're using Ancestry and newspapers.com and all these other sites to put together information. And now often we get people who will email us and say, we've just discovered that our grandfather or our father was in the Ghost Army. And so then we put him in the queue to do another bio. And Jim, you've done a great job on that, working on that, constructing that website. And,
Well, I loved it. I loved
we're
it.
revealing our outside the podcast
That's
relationship.
right.
But, I think that when you were saying it's like one of the greatest websites, I wanted to go, thank you and thank you. Thank you for the compliment and thank you for doing that. So and for making it possible to do that. And then, as you said, we have two websites. The other one's ghostarmy.com, which is really just a website about the documentary, the book, the kind of the for-profit stuff. The ghostarmy.org is the nonprofit. Ghostarmy.com is Rick commercially selling the Ghost Army straight to you.
Right. And I want to point out to people, as people are listening to this, this was a total secret before, was it 2000? I don't know,
1996. It was
96, it was
96.
declassified.
That's what my understanding is, although I've never found the person or the piece of paper.
Oh, so we don't know.
People say it was 96. Multiple people who were around and know, but nobody ever seems to quite be able to point me to, here's the document that happened that says it happened in 96.
It had to have officially happened, right? Because
otherwise,
it's out now.
The Army would be coming for us right now.
That's true.
Yeah.
We wouldn't be able to talk about it. Yeah.
Right.
But
no, it's definitely declassified. It was definitely 96, but I can't, that's all I can tell you.
yeah.
I don't know. It's another Ghost Army mystery.
I noticed that HHH, am I wrong? It seems to be fairly heavily World War II centric. Like a lot of it is World War II. Is that a conscious decision, or is it just
absolutely? Yeah, it's both in our interest, the interest of our primary audience, which is probably our core audience is probably people who go on Stephen Ambrose tours, history tours. And we'll look at anything from any era of history, and we've had on Roman Empire, World War I, Civil War, Revolutionary War. We've done stuff involving the American West, the history of Native Americans, but World War II is our bread and butter. Absolutely, and World War II is gonna. 100 years from now, people are going to be fascinated with World War II.
It's fascinating.
It's got endless amounts of material, and the degree to which it turned the entire world upside down for, basically from 1939 to 1945, so 6 years, and some people would say for 10 or 15 years, but it turned the world upside down, and huge, vast amounts of energy and humanity went into this war. I mean, you're talking about a war that has, probably killed 50 million people, and just take that as a number. I mean, it's a tragedy, of course, but take it also just as a scale. We talk about things now where something kills 20 people or 100 people or 1,000 people, 50 million people, and then all the energies and weapons and bombs and soldiers, it takes to do that.
Sarah Elkins has a question about playlists on the website historyhappyhour.com. And it is, she mentions that you can just go episode by episode on the episodes page, but there are also playlists of the video under the playlist section of the website. And so I just wanted to recognize that Sarah was there. And I also want to mention that just like us, you have a Patreon that supports your podcast, because you're not, aside from mentioning Stephen Ambrose Tours every once in a while, you're not working in advertising. So you're an independent podcast. And if you want to support that podcast, then joining the Patreon is important, just like it is important for us.
Patreon.com/History Happy Hour. whatever it is. Patreon.com/historyhappyhour. I think
And
is
ours
what it
is /Jim Infantino because I just use one for all my projects.
because Lionel's expendable.
Lionel doesn't want to accept any
me.
funds on this. So.
Yeah, I don't want to be associated. I got a day job, and I need plausible deniability in case the ICE guys come for me. No, it wasn't me on that podcast. It's a deep fake. Trust me. I wasn't talking to nobody. Know how.
I'm just saying, support your indie podcast.
Thank you. Yes, please do. And we pay. We make some money on that, and that's what we use to pay our producer. And then we do we do a lot of advertising. We do a lot of Facebook advertising.
Oh, good
quite
idea.
Honestly, and then if there's a few $1,000s at the end of the year, we split it and take our families out to dinner or something. But it's not. It's definitely not the way to become Elon Musk or some other Bill Gates or something. Right? It's not the road to riches. I guess it is if you're. What is it? Joe Rogan? Is that the guy?
Yes. Yeah.
Or Mr. Beast.
Yeah. Okay. I don't know these people, and
you're not missing much.
I don't.
No, there's no
there. I'm sorry. Right. I shouldn't say that.
Mr. Beast is interesting, and some would say there's a science to it. He would say there's a science to it.
Yeah.
But I think, what I can tell from History Happy Hour is that you guys love doing this. You do it every week, and you really enjoy.
Yeah, we like doing it, and it's interesting, and it keeps. For me, it's sort of like it's like I was thinking when COVID happened, I thought maybe I should go back to school and get a master's in history.
Mm-hmm.
So instead, I started History Happy Hour. Have now read 200 history books.
Yeah, wow.
And probably have learned more than I would if I'd gone to school and gotten a master's.
And you're speaking to the authors, and you're having a cocktail. So
it's fantastic. Oh, and we had an early show we did where Chris Wallace was our guest.
I think I heard that one. Yeah.
Yeah, and he came on. And he was doing his shows for Fox News from home at that point. And he came on. I think we were a little nervous because he's a famous Fox News host. And he came on, and about 2 minutes into the show, he just said a bunch of stuff about Donald Trump. Not like exactly negative, but sort of like I just, World War II is just like a break for me from Donald Trump, from this the constantly in your face Donald Trump stuff. And we got some very upset people in our audience who were posting about this liberal snowflake we were having.
Chris
I don't know if they use that phrase, but we were like, whoa, okay, this is sort of all really interesting.
Was he talking about Gotham, his major book, the one about New York City, the history of New York?
No, he talked about, one of his books was about the atomic bomb, but the one before that, I honestly, I'm not remembering what it was. It's a nonfiction book. I probably have it here someplace, but there's a whole wall of books over here. So
there's a whole wall of books over there, probably.
Yeah, I could move my camera and show you.
So if God sat you down right now and said, okay, I'm taking care of everything for you, write the book you want to write. Do you have something rolling around in your heads, like a history that you think ought to be? That was sort of the other variant of my question, which is there something like, man, I really wish somebody would write about blah, blah, blah. I really wish somebody would really write the definitive book about X, Y, Z. Is there something?
Wait a minute. God has to tell you it's okay? Because I just
started
writing.
No. What I was saying was that, if everything was taken care of, if you didn't have to worry about money or anything else like that.
I'm on Social Security. Everything is taken care of.
Fine.
I have no needs at all.
Okay, snip off the conditional phrase. Is there anything?
I'm working on a book. Can I tell you about that?
Please.
Absolutely.
Okay, because it's not exactly a history book. It's a memoir. I having spent 20 years on the Ghost Army and finding it, just sort of launching from nothing into this massive enterprise, I decided to write a memoir about that, which may be the world's most boring memoir. I'm not claiming to be a great memoir writer. I'm working on the third draft right now. It's got about 105,000 words to cover the 20. It's a 300-page,
Yeah.
330-page book. You figure books are usually about 300 a page.
It's an official book length.
Yeah, it's a book length. I'm not. I haven't shown it to anybody yet, so I'm going to. I have two friends who have agreed to look at it, and
Soon to be ex-friends.
yeah, I mean, everybody thinks they have a memoir in them. I think that's true. I mean, maybe not everybody's going to sit down and write their memoir, but a lot of people do. And there's a lot of memoirs that never get published and that are, basically kind of dull in a lot of places. And mine is really interesting in some places, and it's kind of dull in some places. And you could say, well, just take out the dull parts. But it's like, I don't know. Somehow, some of those dull parts are important for getting to the other interesting parts. So, I am at the stage now. I have about another month, 6 weeks to go reviewing the third draft, and then I'm going to send it out for comment, and we'll see.
But you've done most of the writing, so it's in the can largely.
It's I'm allowing myself to believe that after I get some feedback, I might do one more draft where I'm willing to make major changes, and then it'll be in the can.
Was there anything in the process of writing this? Was there anything that surprised you?
Yeah, and I'm just going to assume that we're not giving away the book to the entire world in this episode.
We have no listeners.
Your
so
secret is safe with this. Trust me, dude.
Sarah's actually listening right now, but
Sarah,
nobody on
we
Patreon.
so appreciate that you're here, and thank you for pointing out the playlists. Which reminds me that I have to manually put each of those shows into a playlist, and I'm about a month behind. So I'll get to that. I will. So when I was working on the Ghost Army, I got a lot of no's from networks, from funders,
Really?
from people who I was trying to get. I was trying to, see if I could interview Tom Brokaw or other people who said no. I got a lot of no's, and after a while, I got a little chip on my shoulder, and I created a document. It was in 2011 called the No List, where I literally wrote down everybody who'd said no to me. And I was nurturing this interior sort of hatred. This I am doing this on my own. I am slogging through doing it on my own.
And I'll show them. I'm going to send them each an email.
I will stand up there at the Academy Awards when we win the Oscar for Best Documentary, and I will have the no list, and I will read the names of the people on the no list.
You turned it down.
Sometime in the course of this, somebody called me on this, and they said, that sounds really negative. I bet a lot of people have said yes to this too. And I literally hadn't thought about that. And so then I thought about it, and I started to do the yes list, and very quickly realized that the no list is completely dwarfed by the yes list. Okay. Cool. I was never doing this alone. And the thing that I learned as I was writing the manuscript is how ridiculous the no list was, just as I'm reading what I've written, and the people who reach out to help and volunteer to do this. And my friend Dave Allen called me up or emailed me one day and said, well, I hear you're working on this film about the Ghost Army. I'd like to do the open for you. So you've seen the open for the Ghost Army, which is this beautiful, kind of dark animation open. He just did that. He volunteered to do that. So many people. I had a veteran, Bernie Mason, who I think we'd shared an email or something. But one day a package shows up at the house. He just mailed me his mail. U.S. Post Office mailed me his wartime scrapbook. Okay, we'd never met. We never hardly even talked. And there's probably 50 examples. Well, I mean, there's 700 people who donated money to the film. I mean, there's tons of examples. And so I think kind of what I learned was a little bit about my own foolishness, and that I was being helped all along and didn't realize it. I don't know.
Yeah.
It's meaningful to me.
Oh,
I don't know how meaningful it
I
will
think
be or
that's
how well I
I
communicated
think it's
in the
massive.
book, but that was something that really struck me as I was writing this. And one of the reasons I'm writing it is so that um, when Father Time claims me and I'm no longer here, that there'll be some record of all that for family, maybe for the families of other people who were involved in it. For anybody, just to try to kind of say, we did this thing, and here's sort of what was involved, and even if it doesn't have everything.
So why is
some of
this
it.
story of the Ghost Army seems to be so central? What do you think? I mean, there's a million stories out of World War II. There's a million stories, and I'm sure there's a lot of untold stories too that come people's way. Is there something fundamentally special about the ghost story, and the way it resonates? Well, you're an artist, and this is about artists. It's people, but it's not the Battle of Peleliu. Okay, it's not operating a 16 a mortar. It's about creators, sound engineers, drawers,
fashion
set designers.
Yeah.
Is do you have any theories about this?
Like
Because it
why it's
seems
so interesting to people?
to you.
To me, that's sort of what I was trying to figure out when I set out to write this
The memoir, yeah.
memoir. And 105,000 words later, I'm still trying to figure it
Okay.
out. I think that, what I've always said about why it's interesting, and let me back up. I have always been interested in quirky, strange stories from history. So I wrote a whole series of books called The Greatest Stories Never Told, and each of them has 100 stories from history to astonish, bewilder, and stupefy, like how 3 cigars changed the course of the Civil War. So I've always had an affinity for those. I always would be by the radio at 6:55 p.m. when Paul Harvey came on with the rest
Right.
of the story back when he was alive. And then this came along, and it's kind of the motherlode of quirky history stories. To me, as soon as I say inflatable tanks on the battlefield, that's 5 words that if you're listening and you haven't heard this before, you're going to go, I'm sorry, what? Excuse me?
Yeah.
And it's about using creativity on the battlefield. Which I think is a very
cleverness. It's very Odysseus.
Yeah, and it's very opposite of what you would think, right? There's another word for that I'm missing, but it's contrary. It's contrary to convention. It's non-conventional. So I think those reasons, and then if when I had gone to the History Channel, they'd said, "Yes, Rick, make this film." What would I have done? I would have gone and interviewed 3 veterans and 2 experts.
Right.
And I would have worked on the film for 6 to 9 months, and I would have made it, and it would have been on, and I would have moved on to the next project. But what did happen is that I had to raise money. And so instead of spending 9 months in the film, I spent 8 years on the film. I had to raise money, and I had to convince some network, which in the end was PBS, that they wanted to run this in prime time. That took 8 years. In the course of working on it for so long, I started to fall in love with the guys, with the details of the story, with everything about it that made it, to me, just a delight. The more you know about the story, the more it fills your soul. And I would discover little bits and pieces here and there, and veterans would call me up because, like I said, I was going to make a documentary. Where is it? And what's happening? And where are we going to get this done? And I just fell in love with those guys. I fell in love with the story. Anyway, by the time it was on, the film got on television, man, I honestly did think I was done the day it ran on PBS. I thought that was the last thing I would do in the Ghost Army, but I was completely in love with the story. So when other opportunities opened up, I dived right into them.
Yep.
One of the things that sums it up for me was, I think it was John Jarvie, who mentioned that when they would get a break in the day, and the guys would sit around near a church or a town square, and they'd pull out what they had, like a little brush and some watercolor, and they would paint. This is, it's not what you imagine. These guys who were brought over there were specifically brought over for their creativity and in order to create deceptions, and the way they expressed themselves during their free time during the war was to continue being artistic. It was just so part of who they were. And there's something about that that I just found profound. It
Absolutely.
speaks to the humanity of the soldier.
And I'm still finding artworks that there were people who were artists who, didn't become famous, weren't in the film, didn't meet them 10 years ago, but we kind of make a connection and suddenly discover new pieces of art from the war, new visions through the eyes of these artists. And it is really amazing. And some of them were just quite extraordinary artists. I mean, there's some. I've got a book up here of art by Arthur Singer. He made something like 200 watercolors during World War II, and his son has published that in a self-published book, and it's just really breathtaking.
So after you're done with your memoir,
What are you going to do next?
well, I'm just wondering if there's.
Yeah. So you want? I mean, do I have a history book in mind that I would like to write? Yes. I mean, I've talked about this for 25 years, and I'll probably never get to it.
Or maybe it's one that you're not going to write, but one that you wish somebody would write, like an idea.
I wish there would be a really good history book about the Bermuda gunpowder plot. Okay, which is a Revolutionary War story that there was. The gunpowder that was stored on the island of Bermuda was seized in August of 1775 and eventually delivered to the colonials. But there's a whole plot, there's multiple plots here, and there's a lot of mystery about who exactly did what. And there are two families on Bermuda who are powerful, who are connected by marriage, but who are at odds with each other. And I think that this maybe 5 tons of gunpowder may have played a pivotal role in making sure that Washington had enough gunpowder to be able to carry off his threat when he put cannons on the hills, Dorchester Heights, et cetera.
Right.
So and I sort of started to write a book about that, and then I kind of have gotten sidetracked. Somebody did write a book about it that wasn't very good, I thought. And but I would like to see that really, really covered in a big way, where somebody really digs into the archival research, and because I know there's more to be found out that we haven't found it all out yet.
Rick, we could bend your ear. We could ask from you more questions, probably until 1. But you would run away before then, I'm pretty sure.
Oh, I don't know. I'm willing to test you guys out. That might be the not funny part.
Right.
It would just become
entirely not funny.
It was really interesting, and then it became grueling. But I think this
interesting and then grueling is an alternate name for your podcast.
We can rebrand. We might be able to rebrand. I think we should break here and let you go. I'd love to, of course, have you back. I'd love to talk to Christopher Anderson at some point. I mean, if he'd be willing to come back. But I love all the projects you work on. It's been great to work on the web presence for all of them with you. And did I call him Christopher Anderson or Christopher Ambrose? I get confused.
You called him Christopher Anderson.
You said I did that right.
Which is his name, and he would have joined us, I think, today, except that he wasn't feeling well. So we are sad that he's not here, but that does give us the opportunity to do something different next time.
No, cool. Rick, you were certainly. I don't know where he would have added anything to this conversation, but
hope he's not listening.
Right,
Chris, just pay no attention.
I'm not saying
to
he couldn't. I'm just saying there was plenty to talk about, and it'd be great to hear from him in the future. But to the listener out there, you should definitely check out History Happy Hour, and you should absolutely check out the Ghost Army. If you haven't seen the Ghost Army documentary, of course, you need to see that, but you should go to ghostarmy.org just for the amazing amount of information that's there. Support History Happy Hour on their Patreon and support us on our Patreon so we don't need to run ads for things that we probably don't like. And I think I've said all the things that need to be said, except thank you for joining us, Rick.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Funny Not Funny is produced by Jim Infantino at Slab Media in Boston. Jim Infantino and Lionel Casson are the co-hosts. Our website is funnynotfunny.net. The theme music is from the song Wheel from the album Utopia Revisited by Jim. The opinions presented by the co-hosts are ridiculous and should not be taken seriously by anyone. Our intended audience is literally nobody. If you're listening to this podcast, you should probably pause to reflect on other choices you've recently made. Please do not subscribe or leave a rating or review. It only encourages us to make more. Thanks for listening.